My name is Valerie and I'm a sessional instructor with the Department of Political Science at the University of Victoria. The Comprehensive Economic Trade Agreement between the EU and Canada holds some potential interesting implications for the liberalization of services between Canada and the EU. Services comprise an area of potentially non-tariff barriers to trade. And within the EU, there's been a directive from the EU level to member states that has directly impinged on service providers within the private sector. For international trade agreements between Canada and the EU, there is some language within the beginnings of CETA that touch on some areas of services between Canada and the EU. Nothing to the extent of what takes place within the EU single market, but certainly a greater realm than what is already contained within various bilateral agreements between Canada and EU member states. So what will be interesting to see over the next 6 months as the negotiations continue and hopefully finalize before the end of 2013 is what kind of pushback or civil society protest may or may not happen from different sectors within Canadian society. When the 2006 Directive on Services came about within the EU, there was an enormous amount of protest, both from center-left political groups and from organized unions and those sympathetic to trade union movements. What we've seen so far have been some municipal governments within Southern Ontario demanding essentially more explication of what service providers are responsible for and what the reduction of non-tariff barriers to trade between the EU and Canada might comprise. So as this goes forward, it could potentially be an area that is under pressure to liberalize more, and within that could then become an area that galvanizes more interest and potentially protest with CETA agreements.